As human beings, one of our strongest suits in the use of language is our ability to communicate more while saying less. We can be so economical in our use of language that we could use a word or phrase to refer to something that requires a long sentence or phrase to explain, and the people we address will understand what we mean, and this brings us to the concept of reference and inference in Pragmatics. What is reference? Reference is concerned with how we use words to point to or indicate persons, objects, or even concepts. Think of it as a way of describing a person without calling their names as we casually do on a daily basis. This makes it possible for us to economize words and not get exhausted from excessive talking, since our thoughts can be communicated in few words. Types of reference. Two types of references are recognized, namely, semantic reference and pragmatic reference. Semantic reference is the type of reference that is concerned with the connection between words and the objects they signify. Think of it as the signifier-signified relationship introduced by the father of structuralism, Ferdinand de Saussure. The signifier-signified relationship is based on their notion that the signifier, the name of an object or person, is related to the signified, the person or object, by our thoughts. That is, we can tell what an object is simply by relating it to what it is identified as in our mind. Take for instance, when we see an object that runs on four circular objects, our mind processes that visual information and relates it to the signifier, a car. So semantic reference focuses on how words identify objects in sentences. Observe the following: the teacher is very diligent and he does his work well. The dog is ruthless but it is very gentle with kids. In the examples above, he and it are semantic references because they point to a person, the teacher, and an animal, the dog. Remember that semantics deals with context-free meanings, that is, it deals with meaning without consideration of context, hence the reference. Objects signified in semantic references are recoverable from the sentences in which they are used. Meaning, that which is being pointed to in a sentence, is always present in the same sentence when it comes to semantic reference. Pragmatic reference, however, is concerned with how reference is being made to persons or objects not necessarily present at a conversation. One of the unique features of language is that we can talk about things not currently present, or even things that happened millions of years ago, or things that happened in places where we are not domiciled. In pragmatic reference, we deal with a signifier-signified relationship where the signified is not readily present as at when the signifier is being used. Take for instance, a conversation between college students. Martin: I came early but Mr. You-know-who said I was late. Joel: he does that every time. In this example, Mr. You-know-who is a pragmatic reference because who it signifies or refers to is not present in the sentence, neither is he present at the environment of the speakers. Rather, the one being addressed in their conversation can draw from their background knowledge to be able to process who is being referred to, which is a male teacher that is known to both students for a certain behavior. So pragmatic reference has to do with the use of words to indicate persons or objects that are not recoverable from a sentence or immediate environment, but the objects or persons being referred to can be identified based on the context in which the reference is made, or the background knowledge of the participants in the conversation. Inference is a very simple concept in pragmatics. It is based on the notion that we do not always say what we mean, and sometimes we limit the information we give out because we expect the persons we are talking to understand what we mean without us having to say everything explicitly. So inference has to do with how people are able to decode the meaning of what others say to them. It involves individuals processing what they have heard and relating it to the context of a conversation, their background knowledge of events, or the relationship between them and the speaker, to be able to figure out what is meant. Take for instance, if you tell a friend, we are going to that place today, your friend will process the information and compare it with the context in which you made the utterance, their background knowledge, and the relationship you share with them to be able to interpret the message and give a response, though all these take place in a short time. This shows that inference is based on human ability to interpret messages in order to produce an expected response. So reference has to do with how we use words to point to persons or objects without specifying them directly. The two types of reference are semantic reference, which involves making reference to objects that are present in a sentence, and pragmatic reference, which has to do with making reference to persons or objects not readily present but can be identified from context. Inference has to do with a listener or hearer's ability to decode or interpret the messages of a speaker. Understanding the concepts of reference and inference in pragmatics will guide you on how to economize words in conversations and how to easily interpret messages. See you soon.